It was a cool autumn morning when a young man named Ryan packed his small backpack and set out toward the northern forest. Hiking was his favorite escape from the noise of the town. He loved the sound of leaves moving under his shoes, the chirping of birds, and the scent of fresh pine. Ryan was simple by nature. He worked at a small shop in the town, lived in a small flat, and spent weekends in nature. His friends often laughed at his love for silence, but he enjoyed the peace that came with the tall trees and long trails. That day, the forest looked golden under the sunlight. Rays of light passed through the tall trees, making patterns on the ground. Ryan followed a narrow path he had never explored before. It looked older and less used. The deeper he went, the quieter it became. The only sound he heard was his own steps. It gave him a strange mix of peace and curiosity. After walking for nearly an hour, Ryan stopped near a small stream. The water was clear and cold. He sat on a rock, drank some water from his bottle, and looked around. Everything seemed normal, but then he heard a faint cry. It was distant, almost hidden by the wind. Ryan stood up and listened carefully. The sound came again, weak and shaky. It was not an animal sound. It was human. Ryan's heart started beating fast. He looked around and followed the direction of the sound. The path became rough and covered with thick bushes. He pushed through them, calling out if anyone was there. The voice answered, very faintly. Ryan hurried forward and soon found an old man lying near a fallen tree. The man's leg was trapped under a heavy branch. He looked pale and weak. Ryan rushed to him and said he would help. The old man nodded slowly, his eyes filled with pain. Ryan tried to lift the branch, but it was too heavy. He used a fallen stick as a lever, and with all his strength, he managed to move it enough for the man to pull his leg free. The man groaned as he moved. His leg was bruised, but not broken. Ryan tore a piece of his shirt and tied it around the wound to stop the bleeding. The old man looked at him with watery eyes and whispered, "A thank you." Ryan smiled and said he was glad to help. He gave the man some water and helped him sit against a tree. The man's voice was weak but calm. He said his name was Mr. Thomas, and he had been lost for 2 days. He had come to the forest to find a rare kind of flower that grew near the stream, but he slipped and fell when the storm hit. Ryan told him that he would not leave him alone. He helped Mr. Thomas stand up and supported him as they slowly walked toward the main path. It was not easy because the forest ground was uneven, and the old man's leg hurt with every step. Still, Ryan stayed calm and talked to him to keep his mind off the pain. As they walked, Mr. Thomas told him about his life. He had lived in a nearby village for many years. He used to be a teacher and loved gardening. After his wife passed away, he spent most of his time exploring nature and collecting rare plants. Ryan listened quietly and felt respect for the man's courage. After walking for almost 2 hours, they finally reached the open area near the parking spot. Ryan helped the old man sit on a rock while he called for help from a forest ranger. When the ranger arrived, he looked surprised to see the old man alive. He said the local people had been searching for him since yesterday. Ryan helped Mr. Thomas get into the ranger's vehicle, and they drove to the nearby town hospital. At the hospital, Ryan stayed until the doctors confirmed that the old man was safe. Mr. Thomas thanked him again and held his hand firmly. He said that not many people would risk helping a stranger deep in the forest. Ryan smiled and said that anyone would have done the same, but Mr. Thomas shook his head and said that few people still had such a kind heart. Ryan did not think much of it. He was just happy that the old man would be fine. Before leaving, Mr. Thomas asked for his name and address. Ryan gave it politely and wished him a fast recovery. Then he walked out of the hospital and took a deep breath. The evening sun was setting, painting the sky orange. He felt tired but peaceful. Helping someone had made his day special. That night, Ryan sat by his small window, looking at the stars. He thought about the old man and hoped he would heal soon. He had no idea that this simple act of kindness would soon change his life in ways he could never imagine. A week passed, and Ryan went back to his normal routine. He worked at the shop, met his friends, and went for small walks near the forest. Then, one afternoon, a black car stopped outside his shop. A man in a suit stepped out and asked if he was Ryan. Ryan nodded, feeling confused. The man handed him an envelope and said it was from Mr. Thomas. Ryan quickly opened it. Inside was a short letter written in neat handwriting. The letter thanked him again for saving Mr. Thomas's life and invited him to visit the old man's home once he felt better. The address was mentioned at the bottom, in a village not far from the forest. Ryan read it twice. He smiled and decided to visit that weekend. Saturday morning, he took a bus to the village. The place was quiet, surrounded by fields and trees. He followed the address until he reached a large wooden house at the edge of the forest. The garden around it was full of flowers and rare plants. It looked like a small paradise. Ryan knocked on the door and a servant welcomed him inside. Mr. Thomas sat on a chair near the window, smiling warmly. His leg was wrapped, but he looked much healthier. He thanked Ryan again and asked him to sit. They talked for a long time about nature, life, and the strange way fate connects people. Mr. Thomas seemed full of joy as he spoke, and Ryan enjoyed his company. Before leaving, Mr. Thomas looked serious for a moment and told Ryan that he had something important to discuss soon. He said that good deeds never go unnoticed. Ryan nodded politely, not understanding what he meant. He thanked him for the tea and left for the bus stop. On the way, he kept thinking about Mr. Thomas's words. Something about them felt mysterious, like a hint of something unexpected waiting to happen. He did not know it yet, but what Mr. Thomas had planned for him would soon surprise not only Ryan but everyone who knew him. A few weeks passed after Ryan's visit to Mr. Thomas's home. Life returned to its usual rhythm. Ryan still thought about that day in the forest sometimes, but mostly, he was back to his quiet routine. He worked at the small shop near the town's main street, served customers with a polite smile, and took short hikes on weekends. One evening, as he was closing the shop, he noticed a postman standing near the door. The man called his name and handed him a thick brown envelope. Ryan signed for it and looked at the sender's name. It was from Mr. Thomas. His heart skipped a beat. He quickly locked the shop and went home to open it. At his small table, Ryan carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a folded letter and another small envelope sealed with red wax. The letter was written neatly in Mr. Thomas's handwriting. It began with warm greetings. Mr. Thomas said he was feeling much better and had been thinking about the day Ryan saved him. He wrote that sometimes fate brings two people together for a reason, and that reason becomes clear later. Then came the strange part of the letter. Mr. Thomas wrote that if Ryan was reading the letter, it meant he had left for his final rest. Ryan froze for a moment. His hands shook slightly. The words felt heavy. He could not believe what he was reading. Mr. Thomas had passed away. The man he had saved, who seemed so full of life, was gone. Ryan read the letter again slowly. It said that Mr. Thomas had lived a long, full life, and he wanted to leave behind something meaningful for someone who showed real kindness. The letter ended with a line that said, "Open the smaller envelope and visit my lawyer in the village. Everything will be explained there." Ryan sat silently for a few minutes. The room felt colder than before. He remembered the old man's gentle smile and the peaceful garden around his house. Ryan had only met him twice, but he felt an unexpected sadness. Still, curiosity slowly replaced the sadness. He opened the small red-sealed envelope. Inside, there was a note with an address and the name of a law firm in the nearby village. The next morning, Ryan took an early bus to the village. The streets were quiet and the air smelled of fresh earth. He found the law office at the end of a narrow road. It was a small building with a wooden sign that read, H. Miller and Associates. Ryan entered nervously. A man in a gray suit greeted him. "You must be Mr. Ryan," he said with a polite smile. "Please have a seat. I was expecting you." The lawyer introduced himself as Henry Miller. He opened a large file from his desk and began explaining. "Mr. Thomas left a will and you are mentioned in it." Ryan blinked in surprise. "Me? But I only met him twice," he said. Mr. Miller nodded calmly. "Yes, but it seems you made quite an impression on him. He spoke highly of your kindness." The lawyer handed Ryan a paper and continued reading. The will stated that Ryan was to inherit a special property and a letter of instruction. Ryan could hardly believe his ears. He had never received anything like this in his life. Mr. Miller took out a sealed envelope and gave it to him. "This is from Mr. Thomas. He wanted you to read it personally before seeing what he left behind." Ryan thanked him and stepped outside. He found a bench under a large tree near the office and opened the letter. The handwriting was again neat and steady, like the old man himself. Dear Ryan, if you are reading this, it means I have gone peacefully. I have lived a long life filled with joy and sorrow. I have no children or close family left, and I wanted my last gift to go to someone who reminded me of the good that still lives in this world. You saved me when you had no reason to. You gave me hope that kindness still exists. I want to pass on something that was once given to me, a place that holds more than just land and trees. It holds memories, lessons, and a secret that only someone with a pure heart should discover. Go to my old house near the forest. The gardener will be expecting you. Take care of it as if it were your own home. Everything you need will make itself clear in time. The letter ended with the same gentle tone Mr. Thomas always had. Ryan folded the letter slowly and sat in silence. He could not believe that an old man he barely knew had trusted him with something so important. It felt strange and touching at the same time. Later that day, Ryan walked to the old wooden house. The gardener, an elderly man with kind eyes, opened the gate. He had already been informed by the lawyer. He smiled and said, "Mr. Thomas always said you were different. He trusted you more than anyone." Ryan felt humble hearing that. He walked through the garden, noticing how well the flowers were cared for. It looked the same as before, full of color and peace. The gardener handed him a bunch of keys and said, "This is your place now, sir. Mr. Thomas said you should explore it when you are ready." Ryan unlocked the main door and stepped inside. The house smelled of old wood and fresh flowers. The furniture was simple but well kept. Paintings of mountains and rivers hung on the walls. Everything reflected Mr. Thomas's calm nature. In the study room, Ryan found books about plants, travel journals, and many sketches of flowers. On the desk, he noticed another envelope with his name written on it. Inside there was a short note. "Ryan, behind this house there is a small greenhouse. It is a place very close to my heart. Go there and see what I left for you." Ryan walked through the garden until he reached the greenhouse. The sunlight reflected off its glass walls. Inside there were rows of plants, each carefully labeled. At the center was a wooden box placed on a table. Ryan opened it slowly. Inside was a collection of small bottles filled with dried seeds, and under them was a metal key and another note. The note said, "These seeds are rare and special. They were collected from different places I visited during my life. The key belongs to the wooden shed near the forest's edge. There you will find what truly belongs to you." Ryan stood quietly, holding the key in his hand, his heart filled with curiosity. He could not imagine what could be inside that shed. It felt like a treasure hunt, but one that carried deep meaning. He thanked the gardener and said he would return the next morning to see the shed. That night, Ryan stayed in the small guest room inside the house. He could hardly sleep. His mind was full of questions. Why him? What was in the shed? Why did Mr. Thomas trust him with all this? The moonlight fell through the window, lighting up the room. Ryan looked out and saw the tall trees swaying gently in the night wind. Somewhere deep inside, he felt that this was only the beginning of something big. The next morning, as the first light touched the garden, Ryan took the metal key and walked toward the shed. The birds sang softly and the air was cool. He stopped in front of the small wooden door, his hand trembling slightly as he placed the key into the lock. He turned it slowly, and the lock clicked open. The door creaked as he pushed it. What he saw inside made him step back in shock. When Ryan opened the old wooden shed, the smell of dust and wood filled the air. The light from the morning sun came through a small window, showing a room that looked untouched for years. There were wooden shelves, old boxes, tools, and small jars filled with seeds and soil samples. But at the center of the room was a large covered table. A white sheet was spread over it and something heavy was placed underneath. Ryan walked closer, his heart beating faster. He slowly lifted the sheet. Underneath it was a large wooden chest with carved patterns of trees and flowers. It looked handmade and the design seemed old. On top of it lay another envelope with his name written neatly. Ryan opened the envelope and found a short letter from Mr. Thomas. "My dear Ryan, if you are reading this, it means you have reached the heart of my secret. What you see before you is more valuable than gold or property. This chest carries the story of my life and something that must live on through you. Do not open it in haste. Read the book kept beside it first. Then you will understand what this means." Ryan looked around and found an old book on a small shelf near the wall. It had a brown leather cover and a title written in faded ink, "The Forest of Promise." He opened the book carefully. Inside were drawings, notes, and pages filled with handwriting. It looked like a personal journal. The first few pages told the story of Mr. Thomas's youth. He had been a teacher, but his true passion was exploring forests and studying plants. He had traveled to many countries searching for rare herbs and flowers that could heal wounds or help the environment. The drawings showed colorful plants, each one with a note about its origin and power. As Ryan turned the pages, he came across something unusual. There was a page that described a flower called the moonleaf. According to the notes, it was a plant believed to have strange healing properties. It could grow only under moonlight and in pure soil. Mr. Thomas wrote that he had spent years searching for it and finally found it in a hidden part of the forest. Ryan's eyes widened. The story sounded like something out of a legend. The next page explained that Mr. Thomas had collected the seeds of this flower and kept them safe inside the chest. He believed the flower could help the world if used wisely, but he also warned that greed could destroy its power. Ryan now understood why Mr. Thomas had chosen him. He was not just being given land. He was being trusted with something rare and mysterious. He placed the book aside and opened the chest carefully. Inside, wrapped in soft cloth, were small glass jars. Each jar held seeds, just like the ones in the greenhouse, but one jar was different. It was placed in the center, glowing faintly under the light. The seeds inside were silver gray, shining slightly. A small tag hung from the jar that read Moonleaf. Ryan picked up the jar gently. It looked beautiful and strange at the same time. There was another note inside the chest. It said, "Plant these seeds when the full moon rises. Use the soil near the old oak tree behind the house. Protect them from harm and from those who seek to take what is not theirs." He felt a shiver down his spine. The word sounded like a warning. Ryan spent the rest of the day exploring the rest of the shed. There were old maps of the forest and boxes of plant samples, but nothing else as strange as the silver seeds. When evening came, he locked the chest again and went inside the house. That night, the sky was clear and the moon was bright. Ryan stood by the window, staring at the silver light falling on the garden. He felt something pulling him toward the oak tree behind the house. Remembering the note, he took a small shovel and the jar of seeds and went outside. The air was cool and quiet. The oak tree stood tall at the edge of the garden, its branches spreading wide like arms. Ryan knelt near its roots and dug a small patch of soil. He placed the silver seeds carefully inside and covered them with soil. As he did, he whispered a small thank you to Mr. Thomas for trusting him. When he stood up, the moonlight touched the ground, and for a brief second, he thought he saw a faint glow where he had planted the seeds. He blinked and looked again, but the light was gone. Maybe it was his imagination. Ryan went inside and slept with a calm heart, feeling connected to the old man once more. The next morning, he woke early and went outside to check the soil. To his surprise, tiny sprouts had already appeared. They looked like silver threads growing from the ground. He bent down and smiled in disbelief. The seeds had grown overnight. He had never seen anything like it. Days passed, and the plants grew taller. Their leaves were bright silver and smooth. They gave a soft glow at night. The gardener, who had been working there for years, was amazed. He said he had never seen such a thing in all his life. Soon, news spread around the village about the strange glowing plants growing in Mr. Thomas's old garden. People began talking about it. Some said it was magic, others said it was science. A few even tried to come and see it themselves. Ryan tried to keep things quiet. He did not want attention. He remembered Mr. Thomas's warning about greed. So he built a small wooden fence around the plants and told visitors that it was only a rare species, nothing more. But inside he knew these were not normal plants. One evening while watering the plants, Ryan heard footsteps behind him. He turned and saw a man in a long brown coat standing near the gate. The man introduced himself as Dr. Harris, a researcher from the city. He said he had heard about the strange plants and wanted to study them. Ryan hesitated. The man seemed polite but curious in a way that made Ryan uneasy. Dr. Harris asked if he could take a few samples, but Ryan refused gently, saying they were private. The man smiled coldly and said he understood, but his eyes told another story. After the man left, Ryan locked the gate and went inside. He could not shake off the feeling that something was wrong. He looked out from the window again and saw the plants glowing softly under the moonlight. He promised himself that no one would harm them. That night he heard a noise outside. It was faint, like someone walking on dry leaves. Ryan grabbed a flashlight and stepped out quietly. He moved toward the oak tree and saw a shadow moving near the fence. When he pointed the light, he saw the same man from earlier, Dr. Harris, trying to enter. Ryan shouted, and the man ran away into the forest. Ryan chased him for a short distance, but then stopped. The man had disappeared into the darkness. Ryan returned to the garden and stood near the glowing plants. They seemed to shine brighter now, as if aware of the danger. He realized that Mr. Thomas's warning had come true. People might come for the plants, not for their beauty, but for what they could give. He had to protect them no matter what. Ryan went inside and took the old journal again. On the last page there was a line written in fading ink. It said, "When the moon leaf blooms, truth will reveal itself and the guardian will know his purpose." Ryan looked at the page for a long time. He did not fully understand what it meant, but deep inside, he felt that his journey was far from over. Something greater was about to happen, and he was standing right in the middle of it. The next few days were tense for Ryan. He could not forget the night when Dr. Harris tried to sneak into the garden. The gardener advised him to inform the local police, but Ryan decided to wait. He wanted to keep the matter quiet for now. He did not want more attention on the glowing plants. He spent each morning checking on them and each evening watching them under the moonlight. The silver leaves seemed to move gently even when there was no wind. One morning he noticed that the plants had grown taller than before. The stems were now strong, and at the top of each plant small round buds had appeared. Ryan knew the flowers were about to bloom. He remembered the line from the journal that said the moonleaf would reveal the truth when it bloomed. He felt both excited and nervous. The gardener helped him place a wooden fence around the patch, and they made sure the soil stayed moist. As the sun set, the garden glowed softly again. Ryan sat on the small bench nearby, waiting and watching. The night was quiet. The full moon rose higher in the sky, shining brighter than ever. When its light touched the silver plants, something amazing happened. The buds slowly opened, and bright silver-blue flowers appeared. Each petal reflected the moonlight, making the garden look like a field of stars. Ryan watched in awe. The air felt different, fresh and calm. As he stepped closer, he saw that the flowers were giving off a soft glow, and the light seemed to move across the garden like ripples in water. Ryan touched one of the flowers gently. The moment his fingers brushed the petals, he felt a warm energy pass through his hand. It was not painful. It was peaceful, like the forest itself was breathing through him. Suddenly, his eyes caught something strange. On the soil near the plants, the light formed a faint pattern. He looked closely and saw that it was a shape, a symbol. It looked like an old mark, maybe something used long ago. He quickly went inside the house and brought Mr. Thomas's journal. He turned the pages, hoping to find something about it. Near the end of the book, he found a drawing that matched the symbol. Next to it, Mr. Thomas had written, "The sign of the guardian. When the moon leaf accepts its keeper, the light will mark him." Ryan looked down at his hand. The skin where he had touched the flower now glowed faintly for a few seconds before fading. He realized the plants had somehow connected with him. He was their guardian now, just as the journal said. The next morning, the gardener came early and saw the flowers. His eyes widened in wonder. He said he had never seen such beauty in his life. Ryan told him that the flowers had opened under the moonlight and that something special was happening. The gardener smiled and said that maybe the forest had chosen Ryan for a reason. Later that day, Ryan went to the village market to buy some supplies. As he walked through the stalls, people whispered about the glowing garden. Someone even said that scientists from the city were planning to visit again. Ryan felt uneasy. He did not want strangers coming near the house, especially not someone like Dr. Harris. When he returned home, he found a letter placed under the gate. It was from Dr. Harris. The letter said that he only wanted to help study the plants for science and that his intentions were good. Ryan did not believe him. He tore the letter and threw it away. He decided that if anyone came again, he would report it. That evening, he sat near the plants again, thinking about everything that had happened. He remembered Mr. Thomas's words from their last meeting. The old man had said that good deeds never go unnoticed. Maybe this was what he meant. The gift he had left was not only about plants, but also about trust and responsibility. A few days later, Ryan received another visit from the lawyer, Mr. Miller. He came with a file and said he wanted to go over some final papers related to the inheritance. While they talked, Mr. Miller noticed the silver flowers through the window and asked about them. Ryan explained what little he knew and told him about the legend of the moonleaf. The lawyer listened quietly and said that Mr. Thomas had once mentioned a gift that would change lives. He smiled and told Ryan that he was proud of how he was handling it. That night, clouds covered the sky, hiding the moon. The garden looked dark for the first time since the flowers bloomed. Ryan walked outside with a lantern and checked the plants. They looked healthy, but the glow was gone without the moonlight. He sighed and turned to go back when he heard a soft crack near the fence. He turned quickly and saw two shadows moving behind the bushes. Ryan shouted and ran toward the noise. The figures turned and ran away. He chased them through the trees but lost them near the road. When he came back, he found that one of the plants had been broken. Someone had tried to take it. His anger grew, but so did his fear. He realized the plants were in danger. The next morning, he called the local police and explained what happened. They said they would keep watch near the area for a few days. The gardener also promised to stay at the house during the nights. Ryan thanked him and decided to move the remaining plants to a safer spot inside the greenhouse. Under the glass roof, the plants looked even more magical. Ryan carefully replanted them and placed the chest nearby for safekeeping. Every night he checked on them. The plants glowed when the moonlight came through the glass, and he often sat near them, reading the journal or writing down his own notes. One night, as he was reading, he found a loose page hidden at the back of the journal. It was folded and looked old. He unfolded it carefully. The page contained a map. It showed the forest and a marked area behind the oak tree where he had first planted the seeds. At the bottom of the map was a message written in fading ink. The secret of the moonleaf lies where light meets roots. Follow when the bloom is full. Ryan looked out the window toward the forest. The flowers were still glowing softly in the greenhouse, but he knew they would soon reach full bloom. The message felt like another clue left by Mr. Thomas. Maybe there was something else hidden near the oak tree. The next night, when the moon was full again, Ryan decided to follow the map. He took a lantern and walked to the spot behind the tree. The ground shimmered slightly under the moonlight. He used a small spade to dig near the roots. After a few minutes, his spade hit something hard. He brushed away the soil and saw a small metal box. Inside the box, there was another note and a small crystal pendant shaped like a leaf. The note read, "To the true guardian, this will guide you when the time comes. The moonleaf will bloom once in a lifetime, and when it does, it will choose its keeper. Protect it, and it will protect you." Ryan held the pendant tightly. It gave off a gentle warmth, the same kind of energy he felt when he first touched the flower. He understood now that Mr. Thomas had left him not just a garden but a legacy, a trust built on kindness and courage. As he walked back to the house, he felt a strange calm in his heart. The glowing flowers behind the glass shone brighter than ever. Their light reflected in his eyes, and he felt proud, not for what he had received, but for what he was protecting. He did not know yet that the world outside was about to learn about the moonleaf, and soon, his quiet life would turn into something far greater than he had ever imagined. The night after Ryan found the crystal pendant, the forest seemed alive with energy. The moonleaf flowers shone brighter than ever before. Their silver glow filled the greenhouse like soft light from the stars. Ryan sat near the glass wall, watching them quietly. The pendant hung around his neck, warm against his skin. Every time the flowers glowed stronger, the pendant gave off the same gentle warmth, as if it was connected to them. The next morning, the gardener came early and was amazed to see the flowers. Their petals had opened completely, forming shapes like silver suns. The light from them was steady even in daylight. The gardener said that something special was about to happen. Ryan nodded silently. He could feel it too. There was something in the air, something that made him feel both calm and curious. By afternoon, people from the nearby village began to visit the house again. They had heard stories about the shining flowers and wanted to see them with their own eyes. Ryan politely told them that the garden was private. He thanked them for their interest, but did not let anyone inside. Most of them respected his words, but some left disappointed. Later that day, a black car stopped near the gate. Ryan's heart sank when he saw Dr. Harris step out once again. The man looked serious, not friendly like before. He walked up to Ryan and said he only wanted to talk. Ryan kept his distance. Dr. Harris said he had read about Mr. Thomas in the old research records. He claimed that the moonleaf plant had been a legend among scientists for years, something that could change medicine forever. He said Ryan did not understand how valuable it was. He offered money, promising to take care of the plants in a professional lab. Ryan shook his head firmly. He said the plants were not for sale, and that they were meant to stay in their natural place. The doctor's expression changed from polite to cold. He warned Ryan that if he did not agree, others might come to take them by force. Ryan replied that he would protect them as long as he lived. After the doctor left, Ryan felt uneasy. He walked into the greenhouse and sat near the glowing flowers again. He whispered to them that he would keep them safe no matter what happened. As he touched one of the petals, the light grew stronger, filling the whole room with a soft glow. For a moment, he felt the same peaceful energy from before, but stronger. It was like the plants were alive and could feel his words. That night, a storm began to form. The wind howled through the forest and rain fell heavily on the glass roof. Ryan could not sleep. He stayed near the greenhouse, making sure everything was safe. Around midnight, lightning flashed in the sky, followed by loud thunder. The plants swayed under the light, their glow brighter than ever. Suddenly, he noticed a shadow moving near the fence again. Ryan grabbed his flashlight and ran outside. Through the heavy rain, he saw two men trying to break into the greenhouse. They had tools in their hands. Ryan shouted and the men turned to run, but he blocked the path. They pushed him aside and ran toward the forest. Ryan chased them, shouting for help. The gardener came running with a lantern. They followed the men through the trees until they disappeared into the darkness. When Ryan returned, he found that one of the greenhouse windows had been broken, but the plants were safe. None of them were taken. The pendant around his neck glowed faintly, and he felt a strange comfort from it. The storm passed by morning, leaving the air fresh and quiet. As the first rays of sunlight touched the garden, Ryan noticed something different. The moonleaf flowers had changed. Their glow was fading slowly, but their centers now held something new. In each flower's middle there was a small silver pod. It looked like a seed, but brighter. He gently touched one, and the pendant around his neck flashed again. He remembered the words in Mr. Thomas's note. The moonleaf would bloom once in a lifetime and choose its keeper. He realized now that the plants had completed their life cycle, and these silver pods were their legacy. Ryan carefully collected the pods and placed them in a small wooden box. He planned to keep them safe until he understood what to do next. Later that day, he went through Mr. Thomas's journal again. Near the end, there was one last line he had not noticed before. It said, "When the flowers fade, follow the light of the heart. The true purpose will appear." Ryan looked down at the pendant. It was glowing faintly, pointing toward the forest. He understood that it wanted him to go there. Taking the box with the silver pods, he followed the path behind the house into the forest. The pendant's glow guided him through the tall trees until he reached a small clearing he had never seen before. At the center of the clearing stood a stone structure covered in moss. It looked ancient, like something built long ago. On its surface was the same symbol that had appeared near the plants. Ryan stepped closer and placed the pendant into the center of the mark. The ground shook slightly and a soft light spread from the stone. A voice echoed gently in his mind. It was Mr. Thomas's voice. It said, "You have done well, Ryan. You have protected what was pure. The moonleaf is not just a plant. It is a gift of balance meant to heal the earth and those who live upon it. Use the seeds wisely. Plant them only where kindness lives." Ryan stood silently, tears forming in his eyes. He whispered that he would protect the secret for the rest of his life. The light from the stone faded slowly, and the pendant stopped glowing. When he looked down, the stone structure had turned into soil again, as if returning to nature. He walked back to the house, feeling calm and proud. He placed the silver pods inside the chest and locked it. From that day, he decided that the moonleaf would stay hidden, safe from greed. He and the gardener took care of the remaining plants until they slowly faded into the earth. Months passed. Ryan continued to live in the house, tending the garden and helping the people in the nearby village. He often gave medicine made from simple herbs to those who were sick, never mentioning the moonleaf. The legend of the glowing, Plants faded from public talk, and soon only a few people remembered it. One morning, Ryan received a letter from Mr. Miller, the lawyer. It contained one final message from Mr. Thomas's estate. Inside was a note written by the old man, sealed long ago. Ryan, if you are reading this, it means the moonleaf has fulfilled its purpose. I chose you because your heart was pure, not for reward but for responsibility. What you inherited was not just land or plants, but a duty to protect what is good. Keep this kindness alive in every person you meet, and the light will never fade. Ryan folded the letter carefully and placed it beside the journal. He went outside and stood under the oak tree where it all began. The morning sun shone through the leaves, and the air felt peaceful. He smiled quietly. The world outside never knew the full story of the moonleaf or the true reason Mr. Thomas chose him. But in that small corner of the world, one man carried forward a legacy built on kindness, courage, and trust. Years later, when Ryan grew older, the house remained the same. The garden was full of flowers, and the oak tree stood tall. Children from the village often came to visit him, listening to his stories about nature and the beauty of helping others. He never told them about the glowing flowers, but he always said that kindness was the seed that never dies. When Ryan's time finally came, the villagers found a letter he had left for them. It said, "Plant these seeds under the moonlight and remember that good deeds grow forever." Inside the envelope were a few silver pods, still shining faintly. No one knew if they were the same moonleaf seeds, but every full moon, the garden glowed softly, as if remembering the promise made long ago.